Hola, I'm Roman Gracia, the editor of El Faro English, and today we have a special episode for you. We teamed up with our phenomenal colleagues at Latino USA to bring you a deeper look at El Salvador's total abortion ban and how some women are caught up in it, arrested and tried for murder after suffering miscarriages. Maria Hinojosa and Monica Morales Garcia went to El Salvador to report this story, and they'll take things from here.
Futuro.
Futuro investigates. Futuro investiga.
We should mention that parts of this story might be disturbing for some of our listeners. It is July of 2007 in the capital of El Salvador. A 24-year-old woman named Teodora Vázquez is at work alone at the end of the day. She's 9 months pregnant, and she's in active labor.
Mi bebé va a nacer ahora.
Without thinking, Teodora grabs the phone and dials 911.
¿Por qué no se me ocurrió otro número?
Someone answers.
Me contestó una mujer.
Teodora explains her situation to the operator. She needs an ambulance. Hurry!
Le expliqué que estaba en embarazo, que estaba a punto de dar a luz y que me ayudara, y le dije dónde estaba.
She waits for help to arrive, but there is no ambulance, and the pain is getting worse.
No llegaron.
Teodora calls 911 a couple of more times.
Volví a llamar.
But nothing. She waits, all alone in labor.
Y entonces sentí el deseo de ir al baño.
Then she gets the urge to use the restroom. But when she gets there, the lights don't work.
No había luz, estaba oscura.
In the dark stall, Teodora begins to pull down her underwear.
Y cuando yo me bajo la ropa interior,
And when her hands reach her knees,
sentí que algo se desprendió y bajó.
she feels something from inside of her drop. And then everything goes black.
En ese momento yo perdí el conocimiento, o sea, me desmayé.
Teodora loses consciousness. She's hemorrhaging now, and blood begins to pool beneath her.
Me desmayo, no me doy cuenta de lo que está pasando.
She can't remember if it was 5 minutes or an hour. All she knows is that while unconscious, someone finally arrives. But it's not the paramedics, and it's not an ambulance. It's the police and a federal forensic team.
Me acusan de que yo maté a mi hija, mi esposa.
So when the police arrive, you are covered in blood, and your daughter as well. And the police arrive, and the first thing they do is to put handcuffs on you.
Sí.
In the haze of her consciousness, she doesn't understand what's happening. Where are they taking her? And where is her baby?
En el momento que me capturan, me llevan a mí. Pero mi bebé quedó allí.
Teodora would soon find out she'd been arrested for what authorities assumed was an abortion and the killing of her own baby.
¿Por qué no me ayudaron?
From Futuro Media, it's Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. Today, producer Monica Morales Garcia and I traveled to El Salvador, a country with one of the strictest abortion laws in the world. We meet people supporting the criminalization of abortion and others who have built a movement against it. Through interviews, documents, and archival materials, our investigation paints a clear and disturbing picture of the women who suffer most when a country stretches the definition of abortion to include miscarriages and stillbirths, and then bans them all without exceptions. Earlier this year, Monica and I traveled to San Salvador, which is the capital of El Salvador. It's a special trip for both of us. Last time I was here was 25 years ago on a reporting trip. I'm Maria Hinojosa. El Salvador is still a country that is wounded and bleeding, and the women here still long to be safe and live in peace.
And it's my first time here, in the country my family fled back in the 80s, before I was born. So what I know about this place comes from sad stories passed down to me. But landing now...
Right on Papua International Airport.
I knew I would bring back stories of my own.
Please remain seated with your silver vest.
We came to speak with women who have been incarcerated for what doctors here call obstetric emergencies. Things like a miscarriage, una pérdida, or going into labor alone, hemorrhaging, or having a stillbirth. Emergencies that can have extreme consequences in a country under a total abortion ban.
And though having a miscarriage or a stillbirth is not technically illegal here, medical professionals, police, and judges avoid making distinctions to steer clear of criminal prosecution for being involved in what the government might define as an abortion.
What does that look like in practice? Well, reports show doctors and nurses can end up calling the police when women are having a miscarriage. Let that sink in.
But before we get to our destination, let's just take a moment for some historical context.
Though women have always been politically active in El Salvador, there have been high highs and low lows. Because you see, in the late 1980s and early 90s, the radical feminist movement here was booming.
Estamos demandando una vida digna con salud física y mental para todas las mujeres de El Salvador.
It's a period that coincided with the country's 12-year civil war. But by the millennium, the movement was waning. And it was during that low period of feminism when abortion laws got stricter.
El artículo 1 reconoce como persona humana desde el instante de la concepción.
It wouldn't take long for advocates on the left to notice that women were being incarcerated because of stillbirths and miscarriages. And once again, the feminist movement began to grow. I'll never forget arriving in 1989 during the offensive of the leftist guerrillas, and we were here to report after the war. And now I'm back years after that. ¿Es aquí? Gracias. We make our first stop at the offices of a feminist collective. Their offices include the Agrupación Ciudadana por la Despenalización del Aborto. Translated, it's the citizens group for the depenalization of abortion.
They fight to get women out of prison, and they're working to change the abortion landscape in El Salvador altogether. The offices of the Feminist Collective are in a residential part of the city. It's a white two-story house with large white gates wrapped in barbed wire. There's an indoor courtyard that looks out to the Salvadoran sky.
Okay, so they have writing on the wall. It says, "We build the feminist movement."
The building also hosts a feminist radio station and lawyers' offices. We sit down and wait to meet with Margarita, a young woman who was incarcerated after unintentionally delivering her baby in a toilet. She was released in 2023.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Berta Margarita Palma Hernández y me da mucho gusto conocerla. Tengo 31 años.
Margarita is 31. She has brown hair that goes past her waist. She's wearing a black knee-length skirt and a white t-shirt with a big Chanel logo. She's very girly and sweet. You would never guess that she spent almost a decade in prison.
Estuve 9 años con 9 meses detenida, porque de 20 años.
You were 20 years old.
20 años.
Oh my God. Back in 2013, Margarita was dating an older guy. She was convinced he was the love of her life. But a couple of months in, she got pregnant. And as soon as she told him, he disappeared.
Él se fue.
¿Cómo?
Cobarde, no me dijo.
Margarita says he's a coward. He didn't even say anything, and one day he just left.
So for months, as her belly grew, her neighbors from a small rural town would side-eye her, call her sin vergüenza, shameless. But this was her first pregnancy, so it didn't matter what people said. She was going to be a mother, and she was going to enjoy it.
Pero lo llega uno como que decir, me vale, tienen que hacerle huevo, críalo sola.
And when she got to 8 months, she was feeling great. She was about to meet her baby. Until a very hot day in September 2013.
Pues yo no sentí ni dolor.
She's at home. She goes to the bathroom, which is outdoors. Basically a latrine with a septic tank that is about 10 feet deep.
Hice fuerzas.
Margarita pushes and feels a drop.
Se me fue la niña en la fosa séptica.
So you give birth in the latrine and the umbilical cord detaches, which means that you're now bleeding.
Sí.
Her baby girl had just been born and fallen into the septic tank. Her mom calls the police for help.
Entonces llegó la policía, ¿verdad? Pues gracias a Dios sacaron a la niña de la fosa séptica.
The police arrive and are able to get the baby out of the tank. Margarita's baby is alive.
Yo cuando pasó eso ya me había desmayado.
But just like in the story of Teo, who you heard from at the start of the show, the police assumed the worst, that Margarita had given birth and thrown her baby in the toilet in an attempt to kill her own newborn.
Ya después fue que yo vine a despertar aquí al hospital de Aguachapán.
The next thing Margarita remembers is waking up in the hospital, handcuffed, accused of trying to murder her baby.
Estaba detenida por homicidio agravado.
El Salvador has prosecuted more than 180 women over the past 2 decades for having obstetric emergencies, which the government labeled abortion and homicide. According to the Feminist Collective, they've helped at least 73 women regain their freedom. Margarita is one of them.
All the women that we have represented and we are representing right now is women from poor origins. That's the reality of the poor woman here in El Salvador.
This is Arturo Castellano, a social worker at the Feminist Collective where we met Margarita.
Is more like sending a message from the system that they do not want anyone getting an abortion, even though it's a miscarriage. They don't care. You're going to go to jail.
But why just poor women?
That's how the system works, unfortunately, here in El Salvador. They criminalize poverty a lot here in the country. All the women are poor, obviously, that are criminalized.
Arturo and others at the Citizens Organization have worked to prove that women who are incarcerated for unintentionally losing their babies, they're not criminals.
They're not at fault for not perfectly completing their pregnancies. In fact, they are victims of physically and emotionally painful medical emergencies. And instead of getting help, they get punished by the system.
If you don't have access to education, if you don't have access to a paid job, if you are in the rural side of the country, then you will get criminalized for miscarrying. If you can pay an abortion, you will go to another country to make it happen. You avoid the law. If you have a miscarriage and you are from a family that can pay for private doctors, they won't call the police. But if you go to the public system, they will call the police. Even though that they don't have to call the police, they will do it.
And the doctor or the nurse will call the police because they're afraid that if they don't, they could end up in prison.
Yes, exactly.
By the time Margarita began her prison sentence, there was already a feminist movement in the making to protect and defend women in her situation.
Y ellos empezaron a pelear mi caso. Gracias a la Dios y a la organización es que yo estoy afuera.
Because of the activists, Margarita's defense was successful. Her 30-year sentence was reduced to 9 years and 9 months. She was released in 2023. But despite being out for 2 years, Margarita has yet to see or meet her 12-year-old daughter, the baby who was born in the latrine. ¿Ella sabe que la quieres ir a buscar? I asked Margarita if her daughter is aware that her mother is trying to meet her.
Pues como ella le han metido cosas en la cabeza a mi hija, ¿verdad? O sea, que ella está creciendo en otro mundo, ¿verdad? Pero yo lo voy a intentar.
Margarita says people have turned her daughter against her. Who took your daughter from you?
Pues el papá. Porque él la tiene. O sea que es algo bien.
No me lo esperaba. I was not expecting that. The man who left her, the coward, as she called him, he took her daughter and then moved out of the country. But Margarita says she'll never stop trying to get her back.
Now the feminist collective is working to reconnect them, but it hasn't been easy.
Mi sueño es ir a buscar a mi hija. Ese es mi anhelo y mi sueño, tener conmigo a mi hija.
Margarita won't lose hope, though.
Eso es lo que más le pido a Dios.
Reuniting with her daughter is her constant prayer to God.
Aunque sea donde quiera la voy a buscar.
She says wherever her daughter is, she will look for her.
The women here, they're resisting the system. It's something that you need to be proud, obviously, and you need to admire, because they're trying to make a change that is not welcoming in society, but they're struggling to make it, and they're advancing in their fight.
We're going to take a break. And when we come back, what it means for El Salvador to recognize life from the moment of conception.
Changing the law for abortion, there is not much hope.
Stay with us, no te vayas. Hey, we're back. You just heard the stories of Teo and Margarita, two women who have been victimized and incarcerated because of El Salvador's total abortion ban. Latino USA producer Monica Morales Garcia and I are going to get back now to Teo's story. But before that, the backstory of how and why El Salvador ended up with one of the world's strictest abortion bans. In 1997, El Salvador made all abortions illegal with no exceptions. It was a big story, and it was covered on the Salvadoran news show Entrevista al Día back in the 90s.
La reforma al artículo 1 de la Constitución cierra jurídicamente la posibilidad legal para toda forma de aborto.
It didn't matter if a pregnancy was the result of rape or incest. And it didn't matter if the woman's life was in danger.
As we heard from Arturo at the Feminist Collective, the law in El Salvador doesn't differentiate between abortion, a miscarriage, stillbirth, or any obstetric emergency. Any termination of pregnancy could make you a criminal and could lead to an aggravated homicide charge with up to 50 years in prison. Yeah, 50. A key actor in El Salvador's criminalization of miscarriages is Julia Regina de Cardenal.
Se pueda sacar al niño pero entero, no en pedazos, como pasa en el aborto.
She's one of the most influential anti-abortion advocates in the country, and she believes personhood begins at conception.
Lo que habíamos logrado en El Salvador es que nuestra Constitución reconoce a persona humana desde el momento de la concepción.
Julia Regina's organization is called Sí a la Vida, or Yes to Life. And thanks in part to her, the Salvadoran Constitution was amended in 1999 to recognize the, quote, right to life from the moment of conception. It's an addition to the Salvadoran Constitution that solidified the no exceptions ban from the previous year. Julia Regina is a force in the anti-abortion movement here, so of course we needed to speak with her. But her organization declined our in-person interview request, saying we would be biased against them. That didn't stop us from taking a chance and cold calling her. You won't hear Julia Regina during our phone call because we didn't receive permission to record it. Julia began her career as a singer, writing songs like Gracias por mi vida.
Y ahora quiero darte gracias por mi vida.
A song about a mother who gives up her child for adoption so they could both have a better life. She then founded that organization that pushed to amend the Salvadoran Constitution. As abortion became more and more politicized in the 1990s, her organization narrowed its focus on abortion and eventually became the most prominent anti-abortion group in El Salvador. During our very brief chat, Julia Regina told me that she considers herself an activist who defends life. She told me she's not anti-anything. She's pro-woman, and pro-baby. The call lasted about 7 minutes, and halfway through, Regina questioned my use of the term obstetric emergencies. I asked if we could sit down and talk more in person because I wanted to hear her point of view in order to understand the story fully. But Julia Regina didn't want to meet with us.
In the streets of El Salvador, Julia Regina's influence and her anti-abortion views are everywhere. Maria and I heard it for ourselves from several regular Salvadorans throughout the city, like an older woman who firmly stated that women have no right to end a pregnancy.
Do you believe a woman should have the right to choose an abortion?
No. ¿De abortar no?
A young man whose mother was raped, and here I am, he says.
Yo te puedo dar el testimonio de mi vida. Mamá fue violada y aquí estoy yo.
And another woman who never told her son he was the product of rape.
Usted fue violada. You were raped.
Y ahí tengo mi hijo. Y no lo aborté. Ahí está mi hijo. Él no sabe. Solo yo lo sé y Dios.
But Julia Regina's influence doesn't stop there. In 2013, a pregnant woman with lupus pleaded to the government for a life-saving abortion, and she was denied.
A woman named Beatrice is carrying a 26-year-old fetus missing large parts of the brain and skull.
Julia Regina praised that Salvadoran ruling, saying that, quote, abortion is a cruel and bloody murder in which not only does the child die, but the mother is hurt physically and mentally, end quote. Months later, Beatriz gave birth by emergency C-section. The fetus died 5 hours after birth. Later, this high-profile case, Beatriz versus El Salvador, made it to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and the International Court determined, among other things, that El Salvador failed to guarantee Beatriz's human rights.
But the stories we've told you, Teo's and Margarita's, they didn't want to terminate their pregnancies. They were poor women with very little access to healthcare, and they lost their babies because of an obstetric emergency. And instead of getting the medical care they needed, the government punished them, accused them of murder, and refused to believe women. There are no official numbers on how many women are in prison for obstetric emergencies that are labeled as abortions and homicides. What we do know is that lawyers, feminists, and women who have spent their time incarcerated all suspect that there is a massive undercount. We reached out to the government of El Salvador for a comment to this story, but we never heard back.
On our second day in El Salvador, Monica and I went to La Casa de Mujeres Libres, the House of Free Women. Teo is the woman who was at work when she went into labor alone and then spent a decade in prison. Now she's an activist and an organizer at this house, which is an acute middle-class neighborhood in San Salvador. Teo now runs her own recovery house to support formerly incarcerated women just like her. The women come here to get therapy, to connect with jobs, and to learn things like how to send an email. No task is too big or too small.
Bueno, bienvenida a la Casa Mujeres Libres. Gracias. Pasen adelante.
Teo is beaming as she greets us.
Bueno, por aquí está la primera.
Buenos días.
As we step into the recovery house with its big tiles and mahogany molding, Teo introduces us to Zulema, who's in the kitchen.
Hago un chile de cebolla porque a ella les encanta poner.
Zulema is making a caldo de res. And, well, the smell of that beef stew is reaching every corner of the house. I mean, oof.
Zulema is one of the founding members of this place. And she jokes that she's also the treasurer, the theater director, the dance teacher, and the basketball coach. She does it all.
Yo soy multiuso. Soy cocinera, lavandera, soy mamá, soy modelo, de todo un poco.
Zulema spent years in prison. Now she lives at this recovery house with her 11-year-old daughter, Jimena, along with Jimena's pet rabbit, Bugs Bunny. Zulema says Mujeres Libres has given her life autonomy.
Mujeres Libres a mí me ha dado mucha autonomía.
We keep walking to the lush green backyard with Dale, where we settle under the shaded patio that warded off the Salvadoran heat. Birds caw and croak, while Bugs Bunny, the pet rabbit, roams around the yard.
¿Nos sentamos?
Sí, claro, por supuesto.
Nos sentamos. And here, Dale continues her story. What happened, in fact, after she fainted in that dark toilet stall, all alone, covered in blood? The moment when the police assumed and labeled her a murderer.
Y allí comienza la tortura.
That's where the torture began, she says. That night, Teo, barely conscious, remembers not being taken to the hospital right away. She could hear the officers arguing about which holding cell they were going to take her to.
Escuchaba que decían, la vamos a llevar a la Bartolina del Centenario. Y entonces me llevaron ahí y pusieron la esposa en lo más alto posible.
When they got her to the cell, the police officers handcuffed her.
Yo quedé en esta forma, mira, así.
Teo gets up from her seat to show us how. She pushes her chair behind her, wrists intertwined, and stretches her arms way over her head.
Yo quedé así con los pies así, colgada.
They hung her from the highest point, her toes barely touching the floor, blood pooling underneath her.
Yo tenía un charco de sangre abajo, yo me estaba muriendo.
She thought she would die in that holding cell.
Recuerdo que me sacaron.
From that point on, all she remembers is flashes of time, police saying it was better if she died in the hospital, where she had been taken now.
Yo solo me acuerdo que llegué al hospital y vi todo blanco.
And then all she saw was bright white.
Y cuando yo reacciono tenía cubierta mi cama de camarógrafos, reporteros y que estaban así, esperando que yo abriera los ojos.
Journalists, TV cameras, microphones, all surrounded her hospital bed.
Para salir en el primer plano de la mediodía, que habían capturado a una mujer que había matado a su hija.
They wanted to get their photo of the woman who had just been arrested for killing her child, just in time for the midday news. And that is how Teo learned that her little girl didn't make it.
Me morí, o sea, yo sentí que todo el mundo se me vino encima.
I felt like I had died, like the world had fallen on top of me and I couldn't move.
Pero eso no era todo, porque me tocaba que enfrentar la segunda parte.
Teo was sentenced to 30 years in prison for losing her baby when she went into labor alone with no medical assistance after her repeated calls to 911 for help went unanswered. Until this day, no one knows why or when or how Teo's baby girl died.
Teo's story is the story of so many other women of her generation in El Salvador. Teo grew up in a rural part of the country in the 90s when the country was coming out of a civil war. The unemployment rate among those living at the national poverty line was 60%, with over half of that population earning less than $2 a day. And it was common for children to drop out of school and help support their families. So that's exactly what Teo had to do.
Como mis papás tenían muchos problemas económicos, empecé a aportar para mis hermanos pequeños.
She was 12 years old when she took a job as a domestic worker, taking care of children not much younger than her.
Yo tenía mucho miedo porque mis hermanas mayores ya se estaban casando de los 17, 18 años. Y yo decía, voy a llegar a los 17 y me voy a casar también.
She was scared of her fate as a teenager if she stayed under her parents' roof. It most likely would mean an early marriage, a husband, and children to take care of. the same path her sisters and her mother had followed.
Pero yo siempre tenía en mi cabeza, no, yo no me voy a casar, yo no me voy a casar. Mi mamá y mi papá decían, no, pero
Teo says that's how Salvadoran girls are raised. Their priorities are God, husband, and children, in that order. And a woman's domain, they're taught, is in the home. Teo's mother was a prime example of that. She had been a wife since she was 14 years old.
Mi mamá pasó 26 años de su vida entre embarazada y dando lactancia.
Teo did the math one time and realized that her mother had spent 26 years of her life pregnant or nursing, from ages 15 all the way to 41.
Ella fue obligada a ser una mamá muy pequeña.
Teo tears up as she tells us her mother's story.
Yo sé que muchas mujeres han vivido esa historia. Y esto es dolor.
What choice did her mother have as a girl?
That's what happens to girls who come from poor families, like Teo, like her sisters, her mother. In a country where a woman's worth is all wrapped up in motherhood, in being a wife, in being of service, life can just happen to you without you having any control.
When we come back, what happens to Teo in prison?
Me golpean en la cárcel por lo mismo de que cómo puede ser que una mujer mate a su hija.
And how she became the face of an international campaign to free incarcerated Salvadoran women.
Si somos 17 nos podemos defender.
Stay with us, no te vayas. Welcome back. Before the break, Teo invited me and producer Mónica Morales Garcia into La Casa de Mujeres Libres, the recovery house in El Salvador for women who have been released from prison after having a miscarriage or complications giving birth. They are in a country with extremely strict abortion rules and where the mere definition of an abortion is stretched beyond its meaning. We're going to go back now to Teo's place, the recovery house that she runs in the capital. When you end up in prison, what happens?
Entre depresión fueron 3 años casi.
The first 3 years in prison, Teo fell into a deep depression.
Porque yo no podía, o sea, yo no aguantaba con la idea de que mi bebé no estaba, o sea, eso fue como muy triste para mí el saber de que ella no estaba.
She just couldn't bear the thought of her baby girl being gone. Remember, she never even got a chance to see her baby, ever. It all felt so surreal. In prison, Teo was the target of beatings by fellow female inmates when they found out that she had been charged with killing her baby, despite the fact that she hadn't done so.
¿Cómo puede ser que una mujer mate a su hija y todo?
In prison, the social hierarchy of inmates reflects the anti-abortion culture.
Es que mira, aquí en El Salvador puede llegar por secuestro, masacre, ser el matador. Y está bien, hasta respetados son.
You can be a murderer or kidnapper, and it doesn't matter.
Pero si entra una mujer a la cárcel por una situación como la mía, pues esa mujer...
Teo tells us that if a woman comes in and the rest of the prisoners find out that she had been accused of murdering her baby, she would then be beaten, robbed, and spit on her face.
No le dan agua para que tome, para que se bañe, para que lave su ropa. De pronto le golpean, le escupen en la cara y la ultrajan psicológicamente.
For Teo, the physical and verbal abuse got so bad that she was put in solitary confinement for 3 months.
Teo was then transferred to a different part of the prison where she was actually able to take classes.
Pensamiento crítico.
Critical thinking.
Solución de problemas.
Problem solving.
Autoestima, ejercicio, baile.
So self-love classes, multiple classes in the arts.
Baile,
aerobics.
Salsa, merengue, bachata.
Dancing, salsa, merengue, bachata.
De todo eso tengo diploma.
And then, on a random day in 2013, 5 years into her sentence, she was asked to meet with a lawyer in a private room. There were 16 other women in the room, inside the prison. Theo knew some of them. Why are you in prison? The lawyer asked.
Unas decían droga, otras decían robo.
Drugs, robbery.
Otras decían homicidio.
Homicide.
Cualquier cosa, pero no decían el caso que ellas estaban.
None of them said that they were in prison because the government had accused them of homicide because they had an obstetric emergency. The lawyer then looked at all 17 women and he said,
Ustedes están aquí por un caso relacionado con el aborto.
You're all here because of a connection to abortion. And this meeting, Theo says, would change the course of her life. The lawyer they met with was working with that citizens group for the depenalization of abortion. We met them at the Feminist Collective that we visited earlier in the story.
Since 2009, they had been working to free a handful of women who had been imprisoned. And sometimes it worked. But other times, the process took so long that by the time they won appeals, the women had finished serving their sentences.
So this time, the lawyer said, they would try a different strategy, one that involved those 17 women at that first meeting.
The campaign was called Las 17, or the 17, and it took over the debate around the country and internationally, even producing songs.
Vivas se las llevaron a ese infierno donde pareciera que el tiempo es eterno y sin mayor razón ni investigación su condena inminente era ir a prisión. Todas tuvieron más de una complicación, por eso hoy grito, 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 grito. ¿Dónde está el delito?
Songs that said, I scream, I scream, I scream for them. Where is the crime? The Feminist Collective and other international organizations now requested the pardon of the 17 women.
17 women who had been wrongfully incarcerated between 1999 and 2011 and convicted to up to 40 years in prison for reporting an obstetric emergency, a miscarriage, or a stillbirth to the police. The group, Las 17, would gain national and then international attention. And Theo, she would become the face of Las 17 in the national campaign to set them free.
This is a distress signal from Amnesty International.
Please help. My sister's name is Theodora Vasquez. The government of El Salvador has sentenced her to 30 years for having a miscarriage.
It took 4 years, but in 2017, after Theo had served a third of her 30-year sentence, the feminist organizations brought her case before a Salvadoran judge. Their request? Theo's freedom and a declaration of her innocence.
Surrounded by media, Theo was brought to the court by 2 masked guards, one on each side. She wore a leopard print top, jeans, and her wrists were handcuffed in front of her. In the courtroom, women from different feminist organizations cheered her on. She smiled and hugged some of them before she sat down to make her case to the judge.
Concedan mi libertad. Que me concedan mi libertad porque soy inocente, porque tengo familia por qué luchar, porque tengo gente que me quiere y necesita que yo esté con ellos.
Theodora pleaded for her freedom.
But it didn't work.
Dijo el juez que no me dejaban libertad. Me ratifican la sentencia el 17 de diciembre del 2017.
The judge rejected her plea and sent Theo back to prison.
Y yo sentí que otra vez me volvieron a condenar.
Theo felt like she had been sentenced all over again. Until about a month later.
Condenada a prisión por homicidio contra su recién nacida en 2008.
After a holiday recess, the judge came back.
Pero tras cumplir 10 años de condena, fue puesta en libertad por las autoridades.
And decided to set Theo free.
El juez había determinado dejarme a los 10 años con 7 meses que llevaba ahí.
The day she was released, everyone who supported her was there.
El momento que ya salí y veo la multitud de gente esperándome, era como que wow.
The feminist organizations, journalists, her own family.
De repente mi papá, mi mamá a la par de mí y verlos a ellos, de pronto aparece mi hijo, y yo dije, no estoy sola, están ellos conmigo.
Teo was ready for a new start. She had big ideas. She wanted to help other women just like her. And that's why she helped build the recovery house called Mujeres Libres, Free Women, where women like her can find a safe place after prison.
Las mujeres nos abrimos camino y los buscamos y los encontramos. No nos damos por vencida tan fácilmente, ¿verdad? Entonces, yo tengo esa percepción de mí, de que yo lo que quiero lo consigo.
She was going to become a feminist activist herself, part of that long tradition of feminismo salvadoreño.
Una mujer activista, feminista, una mujer que lucha.
And since that day that Teo was released, she hasn't stopped and doesn't have plans to.
Today, El Salvador maintains its total abortion ban, with no exceptions. Despite international bodies like the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights warning of human rights violations, its recommendations have had zero effect so far. The same goes for the feminist collective's constant legal battles against the state.
And Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele, he shows no signs of changing these harsh abortion laws. In a Univision interview in 2024 with journalist Jorge Ramos, Bukele acknowledged the women of Las 17.
Hubo un caso de 17 mujeres que fueron acusadas y se persiguen a estas mujeres.
In that interview, Bukele almost admits, keyword, almost, that Las 17 may have been unfairly incarcerated. Closest translation to what the president said is that the women were persecuted and that the country needs to start looking at the real problems it has.
Entonces yo creo que en nuestro país tenemos que empezar a ver los reales problemas que tenemos.
But Bukele ended by reaffirming that he remains against abortion.
Pero yo estoy en contra del aborto, pero en nuestro país no.
The Salvadoran feminists we spoke with, like Mariana Moira, say they don't expect El Salvador to change its anti-abortion laws for as long as Bukele is in charge.
What is the interest of this politic of denying due process to women in obstetric emergencies? What is the reasoning behind treating them as if they are gang members, murderers, terrorists, drug dealers? What's the logic behind that?
No hay ninguna lógica, o sea, aparentemente, pero sí hay muchos intereses.
Mariana Moira told us that there's seemingly no logic as to why the laws don't change.
But when you take a closer look, she says, there are economic and political interests at play here.
Hay intereses políticos y económicos detrás. Negocian con nuestros derechos.
She said the ultra-right and the anti-abortion movement are negotiating with women's rights.
Estoy convencida que no tiene otro sentido lógico.
Now, dear listener, I told you that we would come back to Julia Regina and her anti-abortion organization. In 2014, when the campaign of Las 17 was launched, Julia's organization, Sia la Vida, joined forces with a U.S.-based NGO. That NGO is called the Alliance Defending Freedom, and it was a big player in the fall of Roe v. Wade in the United States.
The Christian conservative movement's most influential arm is the Alliance Defending Freedom,
who is pleased with the court's decision.
Alliance for Defending Freedom is taking this as a win.
Together, the two organizations, one from the United States, one from El Salvador, called for new lawyers to join the anti-abortion cause in El Salvador in order to make sure that the restrictions and the punishments against women stayed in place. But there is a further connection between the United States and El Salvador on this issue. Because until very recently, the U.S. was actually sending funds to Casa de Mujeres Libres in order to help women find work. But earlier this year, the Trump administration slashed that funding as part of the administration's major cuts to foreign aid.
Lo que pasó con Tron, USAID, porque USAID daba ese dinero.
Zulema, the cook who does it all at Mujeres Libres, says the cuts made a dent in the organization.
Pues hoy todo este año nos quedamos así sin trabajo, pero hoy...
Even with less funding, feminist movements in El Salvador have made positive changes. When the Salvadoran Feminist Collective first began its legal battles, trying to free women like Theo from prison, feminists relied heavily on international organizations. But today, the group has academic, legal, and medical allies, not just abroad, but in its own country. And as we've seen with Theo, victims of the total abortion ban are getting out of prison, and they're creating organizations like Mujeres Libres to provide safe places for women just like them.
It is our last full night in El Salvador. And, well, yes, both Monica and I are feeling quite emotional. And we feel like we needed to find a little bit more hope in this beautiful country. So we decided to invite Theo and Zulema and her daughter, but not the pet rabbit, to join us for Mariscos en la Costa, fresh seafood with a sunset on the coast.
We drive half an hour from the capital and step into the warm Pacific Ocean. Theo reminds me that it's the same ocean, the same country where my roots are. And for a moment, I feel gratitude. It's about 6 p.m., and the sun is about to set.
Wow, qué chulísimo. ¿Qué te parece?
Hermoso.
Wow.
Hermoso.
Wow.
Bueno, pues
Theo is really emotional. It was more than just the beauty of this sunset.
The last time she experienced the sun setting on the ocean was in 1997. That's almost 30 years. The sunset is beautiful. It's the kind of sunset that reminds you of how small you are in this world.
Los colores, increíble, un naranja perfecto, un entre amarillo y naranja. Realmente esto es de lo más hermoso que puede haber.
It's orange, yellow, red, and purple, sitting above the beach horizon. It looked like it could be infinite.
Pero también da una sensación como del sentimiento de la felicidad, donde podemos decir, esta es la vida.
This is what life is all about, Theo says.
¿Qué te hace sentir emocionalmente ahora viendo, just looking at
paz.
The ocean, paz, peace?
Mucha paz, mucha paz.
A lot of peace.
Esperanza.
Hope.
Because, Theo says, after a sunset, there is always a sunrise.
Siempre hay un nuevo amanecer para otro día más.
This episode was reported by Monica Morales Garcia and myself. It was produced by Monica. It was edited by Andrea Lopez Cruzado and our managing editor, Fernanda Echavarri. It was mixed by Gabriela Baez. Fact-checking for this episode by Roxana Aguirre. Special thanks to Volcanic Studios and our fixer in San Salvador, journalist Ivan Manzano. This episode is part of Futuro Investigates. The Latino USA team also includes Julia Caruso, Jessica Ellis, Victoria Estrada, Reynaldo Leaños Jr., Stephanie LeBeau, Luis Luna, Glonimar Marquez, Julieta Martinelli, JJ Carubin, Adriana Rodriguez, and Nancy Trujillo. Benilei Ramirez and I are co-executive producers, And I'm your host, Maria Hinojosa. Latino USA is part of iHeart's My Cultura podcast network. Executive producers at iHeart are Leo Gomez and Arlene Santana. Dear listener, join us again on our next episode. In the meantime, we'll see you on social media. Muchas gracias. Hasta la próxima y no te vayas.
Funding for Latino USA's coverage of A Culture of Health is made possible in part by a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Latino USA is made possible in part by the Levi Strauss Foundation, outfitting movements and leaders fighting for a more just and abundant world, and Skyline Foundation,